Welcome everybody to another weekly real estate video with me. I'm Drew Kaplan, real estate agent with Keller Williams Advisors Realty. I'm very excited to have Michael Spillane on with us this week, who's a partner in the law firm of Cornettet, Meyer, Rush, and Stapleton, who works in consumer protection and real estate disputes and focusing in tenants and small landlords. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So today we're discussing evictions in the time of COVID-19. COVID-19 is such a strange time, and I imagine for landlords and also tenant relations, COVID-19 is probably wreaking some strange havoc going on, right?
It is. So we have a problem of, we have tenants that are out of the job that can't afford their rent, who then pay the landlord, who then can't afford their mortgage, and then the banks get hit. So it's just a giant circle of problems ranging from small landlords and tenants all the way up to the banks that are overseeing these loans.
Wow. So how does it affect things, whether it's nationally, Ohio, or the Cincinnati area? How are evictions working these days?
So there's kind of a patchwork of issues going into this. First, the CARES Act was passed at the end of March. Basically what that said, it was federal regulation that said, we're putting a pause on all evictions for any reason for 120 days. Now, the federal government really doesn't have jurisdiction over most landlords. Instead, they only have jurisdiction over landlords that are accepting federal benefits. So if you have tenants that are getting Section 8 or other public housing, it applies to you. If you have a loan that is in some way federally backed, such as a USDA, an FHA, or a Freddie Mac or Fannie Mac loan, it will also apply to you. So if you have any of that federally backed funding, you cannot evict a tenant for any reason for 120 days. Further, if you intend to evict them, you have to give them 30 days notice. So the earliest you can file an eviction on a tenant at current time would be August 23. Once again, this applies to all landlords that have any sort of federal backing. Actually, comedian Hassan Minaj just a few days ago set up a website called don'tgetkickedout.com, where anyone can go on, search your zip code, and see if your landlord or your building that you own has any federal backed money. So landlords can find out if this applies to them, and tenants can find out if it applies to their landlord.
Wow.
On a more local level, the state of Ohio has issued a couple different orders. Governor DeWine issued, it was very bizarre, an order with a recommendation. Essentially, he sent out an order that says, we recommend, so not ordering anyone, that all commercial landlords abate rent during this time for all commercial tenants. So essentially saying, we want you to abate, not forgive the money, but abate and don't cause any evictions during this period of time. But once again, it was bizarre because while it was an order signed by the governor, it says, we recommend, which is kind of the opposite of an order, and whether or not it's enforceable, my guess is it is not. But that is the recommendation. The other thing that occurred was they passed a law basically suspending the court's duty to timely process put-out orders. So when you get an eviction from the court, most of the time in Hamilton County, they'll stay it for a period of 7 days. After that 7 days, you can go and execute on that writ of possession. The statute requires the court to act on those in a certain period of time. The state has now removed that requirement. So it is at the judge's complete discretion on whether or not they ever allow you to execute on that writ or how much time they give the tenant. So it gives wide jurisdiction to the court to make decisions of we could delay 30 days, 60 days, or indefinitely until the order expires at the end of July. Finally, we have kind of the practical concerns of eviction court just isn't happening right now. I know I'm defending a tenant that the eviction was filed at the end of March. Our original court date was supposed to be May 12th. That's been continued to June 12th for an initial hearing. If anyone's ever been through eviction court, they know that it's at 121 there at the Hamilton County Courthouse, and it's 100 people crowded into a room, and you run through these evictions in about an hour and a half. I don't think that can continue as is under the current state of affairs. So the court is having to revamp how they're doing these evictions, limiting the numbers, changing the times up. So it'll be interesting to see how practically they're carried out. But as of right now, if you're filing for an eviction, you're going to wait at least a month before you're going to get a court date, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's even longer on that. So there's kind of this practical issue of, even if you can file the eviction because you're not under the CARES Act and none of the state of Ohio orders apply to you, still practically may not be able to file it. So I have a feeling we're going to see a very large cluster of filings come the end of the summer when all these restrictions get lifted if they're not continued.
Really incredible. That's wild times we're living in.
It is very interesting, and it's going to have a ripple effect because we have tenants not paying. As much as I understand that, and there's good excuses for most of these tenants not to pay, we still have landlords who have the problem with their bank. So if you're a landlord and your tenant's not paying, talk to your bank. A lot of them are getting forbearances on this or willing to adjust loans. Talk with your bank on it. If you're a tenant, work with your landlord, because if you make the choice not to pay them under the idea that, hey, I won't pay because what is he going to do about it? It's going to come at the back end of this. You will be sued. That money ain't going away. So a suit could be brought. So work with your landlord, see if you can work out partial payments, a repayment plan on the back end. Everyone at this period of time is just trying to get through the next few months or as long as it takes to get back to normal. So the more open communication you have, the better off everyone's going to be on the back end of this, and work with each other to make sure that the landlord's protected, the tenant's protected, and that we can just get through this time.
That's really good advice. Well, Michael, thank you so much. This was really great.
Not a problem. You take care.
All right. Thank you too.